Hello guys, how are you? This is Miss Farah Talat, your world history teacher, and today we're going to continue talking about absolutism, and we're going to talk about absolutism in Japan. So we're going to go through page 254 and we're going to finish it with 255. We're just going to take the head of it, the three lines as you can see, and we're going to take the titles of what absolutism in Japan from 1600 until 1868 CE. Then we're going to take the national policy of seclusion and redrawing the Japanese domains. Okay, so let's start with that, talking about absolutism in Japan. So, guys, absolutism in Japan started from the year of 1600 with of course, Japan at that time until now. Japan, guys, geographically, it's known as archipelago. What is the meaning of archipelago? It's a collection of islands. Like they are a collection of islands away from each other, like parted from each other with sea, and all of them together under one absolute monarch or under one rule, um, and its name is Japan. So all of Japan is a what is an archipelago. Okay, now in the year of 1600, guys, the leader of the unified Japan, the one who started the absolute monarch of Japan, his name was Tokugawa Ieyasu. Tokugawa Ieyasu. Okay, this man, he was the one who unified Japan under one man or under one name. He was not the emperor of Japan. He was the what the shogun. I'm gonna explain the um, classes in the Japanese society at that time within a minute. But let's just talk about Tokugawa Ieyasu. He took the title of what? He took the title of the shogun. He was not the emperor, he was the shogun. What is the meaning of shogun? Shogun, guys, is the title of the most powerful military dictator of Japan and according to the Japanese classes, and he was just appointed by who? By one man who is the emperor. So the emperor chose the shogun. In other words, the shogun comes after the emperor. So the emperor chose the shogun, and the shogun, he's the most powerful man in the military. He's a dictator of Japan. According to the Japanese history and classes, guys, the emperor at that time in Japan, he was just a name, just a picture for the leader of Japan. But the true power and the controlling of the country itself, it was between the hands of who? Between the hand of the shogun. So the shogun, he was the military leader and the most powerful dictator in the military, but at the same time he was the emperor, but not officially. Okay, like he take the decisions, he say that you have to do that and this, and he control the economy, but he's not the emperor at that time. His title was the shogun. Okay, he set up a capital in the city of Edo, and nowadays it's Tokyo. So this is the achievement of what of Tokugawa Ieyasu. He set up a capital in the city of Edo at that time. Nowadays it's Tokyo. So the capital of Japan at the time of Tokugawa Ieyasu was it held the name of what? Of Edo, and nowadays it's Tokyo. It was the capital of Japan at that time. He used his vast military power to do what? To reorganize Japan. So you can tell from this that he reorganized the government, he reorganized the military, he reorganized the economy, he reorganized every single thing in Japan to work to his side and to be, and he uh, um, was able to become later the leader of the whole nation when he reorganized Japan. So he used his vast military power to reorganize Japan. Another thing about him, that in the year of 1630 he did what? He instituted a national policy of seclusion, which means isolation. So at the year of 1630, he forced Japan, the whole country of Japan, to enter a national policy of seclusion. So he isolated Japan, and the only he before it, they only Japan only took small cultural happening from Korea and China. On the other hand, if you remember, guys, we took in ninth grade that, and no, this was last year. So, if you're talking about isolation, Japan entered an isolation. In the other hand, China, guys, was sending her like scholars, like the very good ones, elite ones. China sent them to Japan to take the traditions and to learn from the policy of Japan. Here, they're telling you that at the year of 1630, Tokugawa Ieyasu forced Japan to enter an isolation policy that now no one is allowed from the foreigners to enter Japan and to settle there, and no one from Japan is allowed to go abroad and leave Japan. Anyone who wants from the foreigners to like to stay in Japan and to settle there, or anyone from the Japanese want to go abroad, he would do what he would be set up to death, and the emperor or the government will kill him. Now, Japan, guys, it was when it entered with Tokugawa Ieyasu, it entered its isolation policy, which is to be not connected with the outer world. It was like what? It was like the Western, it was like Western Europe when it entered the Dark Ages, and it did not know about the outer side. It just was isolated from the outer side. So Japan at this time, it was like the it was like Western Europe in the Dark Ages. Okay, now let me just explain to you. It's not mentioned in your book, but you have to know it. Like, what is the meaning of what are the classes in the Japanese society? It was not like the other societies, guys. The Japanese feudal class system. Now you're gonna ask me, teacher, what is the meaning of feudal? Feudal, guys, it was like this feudalism. It was in Western Europe, but we can use it here also. Feudalism, it means that it's a dominant social system, so it's a strict one and a dominant one that controls everything. In which that the controller or the crown or the emperor gives lands to the people, to the noble people, to the nobility, and it gives them lands in return for what? In return for, or exchange for what? In exchange for them, the nobility, to give him military service. So now he is giving land for nobles, for the nobles to give him the military service and the protection from the outsider enemies. While the peasants, also we have the peasants here, the peasants or the workers or the servants or the artisans, they work for who? They work for the nobles, and they were uh, obligated to live in their like lord's lands, and in the they live in the lord's lands, and the lords give them protection. On the other hand, the peasants must give what? Must give him a share of, sorry, a share of the produce things that they produce as clothes or food or anything. So in exchange, they will take home labor and protection from the nobles, and the nobles will take food and clothes. The crown will give lands for the nobles will give protection for the crown. Okay, this is the meaning of feudalism. Now, sorry talking about the classes in the Japanese feudal system, we have the king, then we have the shogun, we have the daimyo, which means the head of the noble families. We have the samurai, then we have the peasant, merchants, or artisans. Let me just explain each one. King in the Japanese society, he was the emperor, and he was at the top of the Japanese society. No one is like above him, but he was just a title. It was not a real power. Who was gaining the real power? The shogun, the immediate one after the emperor. He was the actual ruler of Japan. He was the ruler, or the leader of the military power. He was with power, so he was the actual ruler of Japan at that time. After the shogun, who comes? The daimyo. The daimyo guys were the wealthy landowners. They were the heads of the noble class. They were the controllers of who? Of after them, sorry, who comes? The samurai, and they were Japanese warriors. The daimyo were the controllers of the largest class, who were the peasants and the artisans, and after, like, the workers, the farmers, the poor people. But after them, at the bottom, who comes? The merchants. Why they come at that bottom? Because they are they do not produce anything. They just sell things for the people, and they do not produce it for from their own on their own.